everyone. So we've talked about this concept on the channel very briefly, but I think it's something we need to actually dive into, and this is not going to be the only video on it. I want to assure you of that. The problem is that this is a varied concept, and it is something that is very much a problem with YouTube, with Twitch, and with pretty much all digital media right now. And I don't think people really understand it, and so we need to talk about it. Today we're going to be talking about parasocial relationships, or what is more known as parasocial interaction. Parasocial interactions refers to as a kind of psychological relationship experienced by an audience in their mediated encounters with performers in mass media, particularly television. Now, what we're talking about goes beyond just basic television, right? We're not just talking about you watch a show, you like this person, you start to feel a connection to them. That's one level of it, but it's in some ways, I would almost say less so, because in a show, in a particular thing you engage in, they're not really interacting with you. You can still get a parasocial relationship. There are people that are celebrity hounds and things like that. But I think this is really problematic online. And I guess I want to talk about it from the angle of first understanding it, and then I want to talk about the negative and positive versions of it. All right, so we're going to try to be succinct on these.
Yeah. I do think it's worth noting this last sentence down here does...
Social media introduces additional opportunities for parasocial relationships to intensify because it provides more opportunities with intimate, reciprocal, and frequent interactions between users and persona.
Yeah, so the term parasocial interaction is kind of working to include the things that, you know, YouTubers, Twitch, and all of that are in there, okay? So the positive consequences of this. So first and foremost, we talk about identity formation. What it says here is the primary effect is that of learning. Consistent with Bandura's 1986 social cognitive theory, much evidence shows that children learn from positive and negative televised role models and acquire norms and standards of conduct through media outlets such as television and video games. In some ways, in a lot of ways, I feel like this is a huge issue because a lot of people sort of are... their identity, their sense of who they are, allows them to construct who they are in that regard. I know this was a thing for me when I was much younger, but if I would watch someone who had very strong opinions, such as Jim Stephanie Sterling, I would, in most cases, aggressively take on their views without any critical thinking. I would introject them, to use the Gestalt term. And so in a lot of ways, especially as someone who has, you know, has very, there we go. Who has a disorder that literally has a sense of, vague sense of self, this can be problematic for me. Because, well, it did help me kind of get an idea of where my leftist views come from, one of the ways is I believe what I believe. It also has a tendency to sort of overwrite me. Ask anyone that lives with me, I'll start repeating things. Hey, Rosanna, please drop the topic. We're on a new topic. Let's move on. Same thing with Monkey Trans and anyone else. We're not on a new segment. Let's move on. Thank you. So what they talk about here is that, furthermore, the research shows wishful identification with parasocial relationships, namely that boys prefer intelligence while girls, while girls preferred attractiveness when picking favorite characters. These alternatives are both enhanced and mitigated by their separation from reality. On one hand, parasocial interactions are particularly appealing to adolescents in the throes of identity formation and increasing autonomy from parents because these relationships provide idealized figures from whom the adolescents can envision total acceptance. So think about that. Total acceptance. You watch a YouTuber, you watch a streamer on Twitch, you watch somebody, and they give you They give you absolute acceptance with no caveat, no problem. This is a big deal. Because this can feel very important. You feel like they care about you. They feel like that, when in reality, they don't know who the fuck you are. Right? We can then go into learning through media. The idea that because of these parasocial relationships, it directly correlates to the strength of the relationship. So again, if you have a positive or negative social relationship with somebody, a parasocial relationship with somebody, you can learn from them or take more extreme views from them. And I'll explain that in a moment. In a study by Lauriciella, Gola, and Calvert in 2011, 8 21-month-old infants were taught serration sequencing by one of two characters. One character, Elmo, is iconic in American culture and therefore socially meaningful. The other, Dodo, although popular with children in Taiwan, is well less known in American media. Children were better able to learn socially meaningful character Elmo than from the character who they were less easily able to recognize. Yeah. And also, by the way, kids can see relationships very early on. This is a side note, but in one of my classes for Psychology of Prejudice, we showed this. Kids as young as like 3 months can actually be biased against things. So, for example, if like 2 puppets are holding up food and one puppet behaved really well before, the kid will take the food from the puppet they like, the puppet that did good, unless the puppet that did bad previously bribed them, in which case they will then choose the stuffy or the food from the one that was bad. We can make moral decisions and have those moral decisions collapsed at a very young age. So it makes sense that we can form those sort of relationships with someone who may not actually have those feelings towards us. So, what are the negative consequences? Body image. So, this is a probably big issue. A study was conducted to examine the relationship between media exposure and adolescent body image. Specifically, researchers looked at parasocial relationships and the different motivations of self-comparison with a character. This study surveyed 391, it's a low number, of 7th and 8th grader students and found that media exposure negatively predicted body image. We know this from feminist research as well in sociology. There's a very clear way that because of the way we sort of construct bodies, we tend to send negative messages about bodies, but the way it is also look at how much certain stars are airbrushed or had body parts switched out of theirs on a cover of a magazine. They Frankenstein people together in these images. If you think this person's the one who can understand you and they're the best person and they're great, and then you're like, I don't look like them, it's going to fuck that up with you. A study examined parasocial relationships between men and superheroes. The study looked at muscular versus non-muscular superheroes and men who either did or did not develop a one-sided psychological bond with a superhero character. The results from the study indicated a significant impact on body image, particularly when exposed to muscular superheroes. Yeah, Photoshop is a hell of a drug. Yeah, no, from what I've seen from the data, Punky Trans, the data is really complex there. I don't like the reductionist, it does or does not, because I feel like both of them are missing the point.
I'm also going to redirect us back to parasocial stuff, because video game stuff is a bit
dodgy,
a bit different.
But I do get the point. So next is here's aggression. Further studies have looked into parasocial relationships and more specifically at the impacts on violence and aggressive behavior. A study done by Karen Ely and Alan Rubin examined aggressive and violent television characters and the potential negative effects they have on viewers. The study was based on social cognitive theory and looked at trait aggression in viewers and identification and social interactions with aggressive characters. The researchers measured trait aggression in each of these participants and compared that to the level of aggression with aggressive characters. They found that more aggressive viewers were more likely to identify with aggressive characters and further develop parasocial relationship with the aggressive character. Now notice that goes the way you wouldn't expect. People who are anti-violence in media would say, oh, well, it made them violent. But what this is saying is people who were predisposed to aggressive views were more likely to go that direction. That's an important distinction. Parasocial interaction has been linked to psychological attachment theory, and its consequences have the same dramatic effects as real relationship breakups. In considering the relationship between parasocial interactions and attachment styles, Cohen, 2004, found that individuals who are more anxious media consumers
tended to be more invested in parasocial relationships. Sure. And last but not least, parasocial breakup. While much research focuses on the formation and maintenance of parasocial relationships, other researchers have begun to focus on what happens when a parasocial relationship is dissolved. Ely and Cohen defined parasocial breakup as a situation where a character with whom a viewer has developed a PSR goes off the air. The distress the media consumer experienced after the parasocial breakup was quite similar to that of a social breakup. However, emotional distress experienced after the parasocial breakup was weaker than that of real-life interpersonal relationship. Lather and Moya Goose, in 2011, I think it's Goose, also considered the concept of parasocial breakup, but in a more temporary sense. So, what I want to talk about this is that if you form a relationship, this either the other less, I'd have to look at the data specifically, but my take on this would be yeah, when you watch a particular YouTuber or a particular person, you get a parasocial relationship with them. Now let's talk about how this goes wrong. So, the positive side of this is obvious. People who are stans of various YouTubers, various Twitch streamers, and like that. The people who are so immediately... One could have one with a book character, I suppose, but they are themselves not parasocial relationships. You could have a parasocial relationship with one, but they're not in themselves. But the fact is that in a lot of ways, you'll see the people who have, the parasocial relationships with a show like Sherlock or Supernatural, or you could argue that fandom is a big part of this, right? Yeah, dysmorphia definitely is a big factor in the body stuff. We'll come to that in a moment. So what I want to make it very clear is, if you are a person who loves a particular form of media or a particular person or a particular like form of media, and you can say, well, YouTubers aren't characters. They kind of are. If you don't believe me, look at the authenticity video that Lindsay Ellis put out a couple years back. Even if you're being as most authentic as you can, you are still a character. Who I am right now on stream is one variation of Jess, but it's not the only one. The one that feels weak or upset or hurt or bothered is not the one that is in chats always with you guys or is at home hanging with Zena. And so in a lot of ways, what I want you to understand is that there is a very real way that these folks that are standing these particular folks are very much in a parasocial bond. They are incredibly linked into this notion that this person's importance and anyone talking shit about them negatively impacts their sense of self. And this affects all of us to varying degrees. What I wanted to mention, though, is that I've seen this go with the relationship breakup thing, especially with certain YouTubers. I'll give you an example.
Do you want to open the door real quick?
Why, are we letting the pupper out?
No, we're just letting air in.
Oh.
So it doesn't get too hot in here.
So a good example of this would be how many trans people turned on Contra after the Buck Angel thing? Now, one could make the argument that this was because of some moral issue. Sure. But from what I've heard behind the scenes from a lot of trans people is that this wasn't the issue. It wasn't just some moral compunction. That was a post hoc justification. What it was is that they were told by others or misunderstood the media in question, and yes, they felt betrayed, Tiamat.
Mm-hmm.
The moral rationalization was just a post hoc justification. It was something to make them feel justified, feel vindicated. But in reality, they are by definition hurt, upset, bothered. Hey, Venus, welcome. This is the problem with parasocial systems, is that just like any other relationship, you can end them or break up with them. Think about how many people sent shitty letters to PhilosophyTube because she stood by Contra. Fans or people who are in the same roundabout area will develop these parasocial interactions. Let's be very clear. This happens on Twitter all the time. How many people hate Contra? How many people hate Vosh? How many people hate fucking, God, Ben Shapiro, Caleb Maupin, I can keep going, Lindsay Ellis.
We've talked about her a lot, yeah.
Yeah. The fact is that rather than just pointing out these people's flaws, it becomes a personal grudge, a personal hate. And this is what I mean when I say negative parasocial relationships. is that it's not just loving or feeling connected to someone, it's viscerally hating them to a level that doesn't make sense. No, absolutely. Twitter is built for this, 100%. Neon, I'd be interested in that discussion, but this is one of the reasons why I'm very distrustful of rumors online. I've heard rumors saying certain social media people that I follow will organize their communities in hate mobs, yet I've never been able to see some of these hate mobs. Never. It's not to say there probably aren't occasional bad actors. Every community has them, and you try to deal with them as much as possible. But this is the problem, is that I think that there's a way in which our parasocial relationship with this particular person, if it's positive, we give people the benefit of the doubt if they're on our side. But if they dislike the person we like, we feel personally attacked. If that person is someone you hate, one person from their community who harasses you, and suddenly it becomes all of them. Hey, Venus, do I know who this is going to be? Does it start with an L?
I also don't know that, like, this is necessarily just an adolescent mindset. Like, I know where most of these studies are referring to adolescents, but I don't know that this is just an adolescent thing.
No, I think this is a person thing.
Yeah, this to me is more like humans in general. Of
Yeah,
variety of ages.
Let us not summon her or her lot. What I will say is no. I'll actually say this.
What are you're
I'm referring to what Venus is saying.
To Venus, okay.
Yeah. So Venus, one of the things I struggle with, and I'll say this to the community very clearly, the person in question that Venus is referring to, who I will not name, is a person that I have enough ammunition now that I could easily make another video. This isn't a front. This isn't me dunking. This is just the truth. Here's the problem. I am very terrified that this will then embolden other people to hate on that person, because people like Kiwi Farms use and weaponize certain things that are said by us to go after others. I don't want that. As much as I dislike some of the actions by people on YouTube, I don't want to weaponize fucking Kiwi Farms. Yes?
Nana was thinking more on the integral theory axis. Do we want to put that question actually might be really good to discuss on the integral theory
videos? Yeah.
Videos instead?
The short version is I would say it's probably a relational issue at some level of the relationship line. So developmentally speaking, it probably has the same effect as a breakup. Yes, Kiwi Farms by definition is a toxic parasocial relationship. Their interactions with their entire focus, the entire like Christorian nonsense is a parasocial relationship gone horribly too far.
That's super fucking true. We do have a whole separate video on integral stuff, which is what Nana was referring to. So if you're interested, go check out that playlist.
Yeah, I actually have an article up for that. We'll be talking about that probably in the next segment of this. But I wanted to bring this up to you guys because I want you to understand something. When YouTubers talk about these, I think that we have a tendency to gloss over and not pay attention to them. And so I want to start talking about this more and more because this needs to change.
I think we see a lot of toxic stuff coming out of other places, don't we? We get to hear a lot about how this stuff goes south real fast.
Well, and it's hard because even though we're still very small, like we've had people come in before who have these kinds of relationships, that have these kinds of things with us, where they want to interact with us in a way that just isn't really appropriate or isn't really comfy for us. And it's really difficult. It's really hard.
Yeah, no, I think that's my big thing is kind of examining this both as us and also kind of arming our community members with, you know, this knowledge and understanding, because we really do want to have a healthy community that can handle conflict. That is, you know, we can have difficult discussions. We can disagree with each other and still, you know, be okay afterwards. You know, albeit like shit takes that massively harm people. Okay, but
Venus,
I think that's
true.
why this is definitely, you know, important to us. Also, we do not owe you friendship. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see where this gets toxic in a lot of different cultures and a lot of different systems. Look at the idol culture in Japan. Those girls are literally kept from having relationships because as far as I understand it, and I could be wrong on this, they're kept from having relationships because the perception of having a boyfriend or even a girlfriend would be considered a threat to the parasocial relationship their fans have with them. Think about that. That's really fucked. Yeah, I have people in here I talk to often. I don't necessarily am friends with everybody here, but I do care about all of you. That's the thing. Like, I have to be very careful with that and be clear about the way we interact and all that. And
well, I think you and I will get sucked into caring very, very fast. Like, we really...
Yeah, that's our
we
issue.
Absolutely care. Like,
I
so
wish I was
fucking...
more heartless. I could be... It would make things so much easier.
No, I mean, that's why we're here with the mental health channel, is because we give a fuck. We absolutely do care. And it is really hard to, you know, see difficult content coming into, like, our server, because we really do want to go, let me help you, or let me fix this, or, like, why? How do we help? And you know, there is a lot of, like, there's hundreds of people in two of us, and that's not really a way to you know, do a personal connection. That's not really a thing that we can foster with that big of a ratio difference.
Yeah. So I guess the thing I want to be really clear with here is that when you guys are on social media, or when you're engaging on the Discord or another Discord, watch people's behavior. Be observers. Be anthropologists. Be psychologists. Just try to pay attention and look at it. If this person is reacting really aggressively, and it's about a particular figure, then probably there's a parasocial thing going on there. I know I've had that with, for example, Contra or Vosh or people, and I do try to stem those. But it's something we all have to be careful of, because I don't think this is a certain age or mental demographic. I think this is a people problem. And I think this is a problem specifically in regards to, if I'm really honest, I think it's a problem that maybe neurodivergent people can struggle with a lot more. And I think there's also ways in which certain gender roles that are trained in us can also probably strengthen depending on what type of parasocial relationship it is.
In a lot of different directions too, yeah.
Yeah, I think the online left has a very big problem with the parasocial relationship of anyone succeeding, because we view success as being part of the hierarchy. We immediately tear them down. That's a weird one. Like, we need to call this shit out. So we're going to be talking more about this. We are going to be going more into parasocial stuff, but I just wanted to do a basics here and just discuss this briefly, because we need to push back on this shit. Yeah, fandom drama is fucking stupid, and harassing any voice actor over it is nonsense. Fuck you, Voltron. And I love Voltron. Let me be clear. I love that fucking robot, but the fandom went insane. So, anywho, you have anything else you want to end on, or?
I will say I think that Vosh is playing a different game than just parasocial stuff, because, and I want to be careful, because when we see Twitter mobs going back and forth and, like, people getting harassment, that's another, like, topic that is in here, and how to deal with that as a community is a whole other conversation that I know we've talked about with, you know, Anatomic. I think we've talked about, like, Twitter mobs going after Lindsay Ellis. So there are some... The question is here going to be, how do we navigate this stuff? What is a good and healthy response that will actually yield a helpful outcome?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably the more important questions to me to ask. But yeah, this is tough. Arm you with knowledge. Also, self-plug. I did a video about lenses, and Jess and I were in that video together talking about lenses. And
it'll probably be posted this week.
But this situation too, like Jess said, there's a lot of ways to view the interactions that you are having, and being able to take that step back and look at them can be really helpful, so you avoid some of this negative shit. Okay? So that's all.
Yeah. All right, guys, we'll cover this more. We obviously have a lot of different things, but we'll cover this more next time. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. You can also ring the bell if you want to be notified of our videos. If you want to help the channel, you can donate at streamlabs.com/transgirltherapist/tip. You also can become a patron at patreon.com/transgirltherapist. For as low as $3, you can support our channel. Thanks for watching.